But of course, an awful lot of companies haven't actually ended up needing that furlough cash. And we have seen 125,000 major businesses handing their money back to the government, saying, it turns out we didn't need it, we've survived, we've done okay. But not everyone's doing that. Well, let's talk to Harry Fone. He's a grassroots campaign manager at the Taxpayers Alliance. Good morning to you.
Good morning, Julia. Thank you for having me on.
No, thank you very much for joining us. It is fascinating, isn't it? There are companies that started announcing that they were handing back the furlough cash that they'd had. They decided, actually, we've done okay. We don't need that cash. We don't need to get help from the taxpayer. We'll hand that cash back. And it started a real role of sort of virtue signalling, a good kind of virtue signalling, of big companies saying, we're fine. Here are the goodness knows how many millions going back. And quite a lot of pressure on companies who haven't done that to follow suit.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there was a story just at the weekend showing that, as you mentioned, several thousand firms have returned money that's been loaned to them by the government, taxpayers' money, of course. And I think the latest figures show that as of, I think, about February 18th, almost £500 million had been returned. And I think this is, companies that have been reluctant to hand money back, even when they've experienced decent profits, despite everything that's happened, should remember that, it's not the government's money, it's our money, it's taxpayers' money. And they need, and I think, taxpayers will have long memories of firms that helped to restore the public finances and those that didn't.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, that's the key thing is the money that was available for and needed by many companies just to stay afloat and was desperately needed by those people, companies and the whether it was the loans, bounce back loans, help with lots of help, government help with business rates being delayed, rent and things. And there's been so much help available. For a lot of companies, not enough, unfortunately, and a lot of employees, not enough. But and some people not even eligible for any of it. But we have seen some cases where some very, very wealthy people, some very big companies with huge profits, plenty of money in the bank, have taken millions upon millions of pounds of taxpayers' money, and they're not paying it back.
Yeah, and I wouldn't like to be in their press department. I imagine they're probably sort of half encouraging the firm to pay it back because of the bad press that they're getting.
But we should know what companies have got from the taxpayer, and if they're still paying big dividends to shareholders, well, I think we've got a right to say, well, have our money back, please. You clearly didn't need it.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think this is one of the sort of good things about the scheme is there is some decent transparency, around the figures, and the press have been doing a pretty good job at calling those out. You mentioned who have seen their fortunes improve, and those firms that have handed money back. I mean, I remember way back at the start of this, I think Tottenham Hotspur were borrowing. We're going to take use of government cash. There was a huge uproar, and I think they quickly reversed that decision. I mean, the only argument I can make in favour of these firms that have seen huge profits. And they're still claiming furlough money, and it's not a great argument, is that they have effectively been forced into this by the government. I read today that one of the firms involved, they've had to furlough their receptionists at their office buildings because no one's going in anymore. Yeah. So you could sort of say, well, I understand that because the government says you can't go in, but at the same time, it doesn't send a very good message. And I know people personally who, because of their circumstances at the time, they were unable to claim any government support, and these were people that genuinely needed it.
Yeah.
So the government had a tricky position if they had to make this kind of try and make sure that no one was left behind and capture everyone, and money maybe ended up going to those that didn't need it. But it's been great to see, on the other hand, a lot of firms saying, no, we thought we needed it at first, but actually no, we don't, and we're going to pay it back because we're backing taxpayers.
I think it was The Spectator magazine was one of the first to say, look, we thought we put people on furlough, but actually we've been okay, and we're fine. And that sort of that was very public and started the ball rolling. And I think we should definitely applaud the companies that can do that. But again, we know that these schemes are messy. We know there are people who are excluded, and people can argue for or against whether or not that those exclusions should have been closed down by now. And we know that there's been a lot of profiteering as well. I think HMRC is going to be very, very busy in the coming years, clawing back a lot of that cash. And I always thought from the word go, when people talk about fines for people trying to leave the country or having a party or something, forget that. I always said from word go, when Rishi Sunak announced the furlough money and the help for businesses, that he should have said at the time, this is for people who need it. If it is shown that you have defrauded the country country and you have taken money that you did not need and you knew you didn't need it and you were defrauding, you forget fines, forget interest, you will go to prison, and you'll go to prison for a long time. This is a moment of crisis in our country, and if you take advantage of that, you will be punished. I always thought that might have focused minds a little bit more.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, we are all in this together. We have seen record borrowing this year to the tune of billions. Our national debt is now above £2 trillion. So any firms who can give this money back and help contribite to restoring the public finances should be rightly applauded.
Absolutely.
I mean, I think in some of the cases we've seen today, that some of them technically haven't done anything illegal, or I should say they haven't done anything illegal. But then, as you say, we have seen firms. We've seen these sort of ghost firms created to try and plunder this money, basically. So and the government should absolutely come down on those people like a ton of bricks who have effectively stolen money from the taxpayer. As I say, when they came up with this system, there were always going to be flaws in it.
Yeah.
But we need a system that makes sure that it gets to the people that really need it.
Absolutely.
Now, hopefully, as we're coming out of lockdown, the pressure is going to ease, and taxpayers aren't going to be shouldering this burden as much.
But we've got a new burden, haven't we? I wonder what you think about the lateral flow test. I mean, regardless of the policy side of that, we're told, we're going to be offered, each of us as an adult, 2 free lateral flow tests. Of course, they're not free. If you pay taxes in this country, you're paying for the darn things. And we were told this is going to cost £1 billion a week for healthy people to take a test to show they're still healthy. This is all part of this £100 billion moonshot. Now, I really don't resent the test and trace in the early days to try and get on top of this, and I absolutely don't resent a single penny spent on vaccines. And if there was hundreds of millions spent on a vaccine that never even got to the into a patient's arms, it's still worth it because it's an insurance policy. It was worth it, but £100 billion moonshot, £1 billion a week on lateral flow tests. I mean, that's an extraordinary amount of taxpayers' money.
Absolutely. I mean, the way I've heard it described is that the Conservative Party has found the magic money tree, which they claimed didn't exist. I mean, you mentioned test and trace. How this has gone from, I think, what were we at initially, around about 10 billion, something like that, a colossal amount of money. I spoke to a friend of mine in the IT industry who he reckoned, you could build it for about a couple of £100,000. I mean, even if you gave him 10 million, you're still up on the deal. And now we're at £37 billion, £1 billion a week, £52 billion over the course of the year, when in theory, the virus now should be sort of on the decline, because of the vaccine and everything like that. And I think there is some doubt around maybe how accurate these tests can be as well.
Yep.
There could well be better things that the money could be focused on.
I can think of 100 things off the top of my head. It would be better saving of money, and that it would all save more lives as well. Harry Fone from the Taxpayers Alliance, thank you very much indeed for talking.